Reimagining Black Relations, a podcast on solutions to issues relating to the Black race. Our guest today is Professor Isaac Olawale Albert, a renowned and accomplished professor and practitioner and specialist in conflict analysis, early warning monitoring, peace process planning, monitoring and evaluation. He's a conflict management trainer and professional mediator. He established the master's and PhD degree programs in peace and conflict studies in several universities. He was a co-founder and a research associate to the Center for Research on Inequality and Human Security, CRISE, at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom in 2003. He had all his 3 degrees, bachelor's, master's, and PhD in history and African studies from the University of Ibadan, but trained in peace processes at the United Nations International Leadership Academy in Amman, Jordan in 1999. Professor Albert, thank you for joining us on Reimagining Black Relations in Nigeria.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and congratulations for the excellent work that you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Professor, I tried to cover the critical aspect of your professional profile, but I'm certain I did not emphasize the important components. Please give us a minute synopsis about your background so we can all be on the same page.
Well, thank you so much. As you rightly said, I established peace studies programs in several universities. I think the little that I would just like to add is that I'm the current editor of the African Journal on Terrorism. That journal is owned by the African Union, based in Algiers in Nigeria. That is the Center for Counterterrorism, is based in Algiers. I do many things here in Nigeria. I would not want to share the latest with you because of the ongoing crisis in the country, but I established the Society for Peace Studies and Practice that brings together peace practitioners across the country. We are well known across the country, and we have representatives across the 36 states of the Federation. Trained many peace workers that helped to facilitate the 1999 transition from military to civil rule. And we started picking the conflicts in the country one by one. You know, we worked on them. The Chief Jukun crisis, the Warri crisis, the Ife Modakeke crisis, the crisis in Plateau states. And I think that was how I became a household name in Nigeria.
Oh, that is awesome. Thank you for the work you're doing. I can just only imagine what it entails. Do you also mind extending the introduction to tell us about the man behind the title, like where you were born, which part of Nigeria you're from? You may also include your religious affiliation as well, just as much as you feel comfortable sharing to the listeners so that they can know a little bit about the man behind the accolades.
Well, thank you so much. I'm Yoruba from the Southwest, but I grew up in the northern parts of Nigeria. And that is why when I speak Yoruba today, colleagues accuse me of speaking the adulterated Yoruba language, but that makes me to be cosmopolitan. I am very, very comfortable, working with any Nigerian and working in any part of Nigeria. I am a Christian. I worship with the Chapel of the Resurrection, University of Ibadan, probably because of my background and my academic specialization. I am very, very free with everybody. I don't want to know about your religion. I don't want to know about your ethnicity, but I'm fascinated by ideas. If I meet brilliant people, if I meet people who are focused, I easily get along with them. And I think that actually helped my academic career. I forgot to inform you that for 2 years, I was the board chairman of the West African Network for Peace Building. It is the biggest civil society organization working on peace and security issues in the West African sub-region. And ONEP, as it's called, helps ECOWAS to manage its early warning systems. Early warning system has to do with putting in place a number of scientific instruments for predicting possible conflict issues and dealing with them before they escalate into something very difficult to manage. And I managed that regional organization for 2 years. So it's a very big organization with multi-million US dollar budget annually. So it's a very huge organization. I also work with the military. I work with security people in terms of training, in terms of policy advice, and so on. So that's Professor Albert.
I don't think I've actually met anyone that has the wealth and the depth of knowledge about Africa as much as you've articulated in the past few minutes. So I'm so thrilled that you are the one that I'm speaking to first on this matter concerning reimagining Black relations in Nigeria. So I'm really excited to hear your perspective personally, emotionally, and collectively as a people, as a race. Everything you've said, it was almost in my mind a preparation to this very moment we are in Nigeria.
Yes.
It's like everything put together, right?
Yes.
It's violence, it's conflict, it's just the total package. It's almost like you were prepared for this very moment. So then, as a peace and conflict specialist, what is the general process for resolving conflict and establishing peace? Is it similar to the process that they use in business issue resolution process? For example, you approach it from a root cause analysis, you use different methodology, Pareto chart, fishbone method. Is it very similar to that, or is there a specific process that you use when you are approaching this? I just want to get a very high level framework that you use in approaching this.
I think what those of us in peace and conflict studies, what we do is to harvest ideas from different constituencies for framing our discipline. If you are not too innovative, it's difficult for you to function very well in this discipline because you are not going to find all the answers written down in a book. You study the situation and then you frame your own solution. Now, I agree with you that you cannot actually solve any problem without a good knowledge of conflict analysis. I could hear you using some of our terminologies, and I'm sure that probably you've been working around some of these issues for some time. Now, let's look at conflict management from two perspectives. The first one is that to be able to manage any conflict, you must have a good knowledge of the problem. And therefore, we have identified 4 scientific causes of conflict. The first one, resources. Resources is the most advertised of the causes of conflict. Resources here is not just only referring to money, it's not referring to property, but any part of your body could be a resource. Resources are generally scarce, as you usually say in the field of business, but human needs are insatiable. You want to be rich, but it's difficult for us to tell you how much you want to be rich. Trillionaires are still struggling to make money. And then at what point will they stop? Now, because human needs are insatiable and resources are limited, you are bound to have conflict as you struggle to acquire more resources. Because the resources are limited, we are always in conflict. Even if you give the whole world to us, there will still be conflict over how to share it. We are saying that in the process of allocating resources, you are bound to have problems. Now, if you apply that to the problems in Nigeria, the most advertised grievances in the country has to do with the allocation of resources. You have 10 billion US dollars budget, and then you give everything to your own region. What I'm just trying to say here is we have 2 arguments. The first is that the resources are not sufficient, but the second has to do with lack of justice in how you allocate the little that is available. The second cause of conflict has to do with our value system. You're a very transparent person, but you have to do business with a criminal. You're a Christian. You are dealing with a Muslim. You are Yoruba like me, and I'm dealing with an Igbo. We all have our values, and these values affect our relationship with other people. What we consider to be important are definitely different from those of others. Now, when the two of us are brought together, my own academic argument is that the difference in our values probably is not the problem. That I am a Christian and you're a Muslim is not the problem. Values become a problem when you want to force me to accept your values. We'll want others to be like us. And I think this is the problem most parents are also having. We want our daughters, our boys to be like us. Their values are totally different. Here in Ibadan, I constructed a big building. But one day I was coming from the church and I asked my son to go and open the gate. He looked at the building that I constructed for 12 years and he said, rubbish. I said, why? He said, look, this is nonsense. I will build something better for you. So our values are different. Probably the size of the building is not good for him. Or he looks at me, you're a professor, you are not staying in a befitting place. So our value systems are different. So that is the second one. The third one, our psychological needs. Our psychological needs are either genetically acquired or environmentally acquired. If your parents are very aggressive, if any of your parents are very aggressive, it is most likely you will equally be aggressive. If you are arrogant, you cannot fit well in an assembly of decent people. For our discussion here, I'm saying that when our psychological needs are not the same, they will definitely not cohabit peacefully together. If I apply that to Nigeria, different ethnic groups in Nigeria have different types of psychological needs. And some of us cannot stomach sitting down with certain people. Then the last one, how we exchange information. Some of us don't know how to talk. Let me just make it as simple as that, to say we do not know how to talk. Some presidents are singled out by the bad ways they communicate with the public. They abuse people, they curse people, they do not have what you call traditional courtesies. They don't know how to behave normally. We consider that to be a very big problem in conflict management. And that is why in my field, some state officials have to be locked up for like 2 weeks. You teach them how to address people. Because if you let them loose in the society, they will destroy empires using their mouth. So I have presented to you 4 causes of conflict. I started with resources, values, psychological needs, and communication. Now, if you invite me to your organization to manage a problem, the first analysis I will do, I will ask a number of questions, I will interact with people in the organization, and as I'm interacting with people, interacting with everybody, I'm also building my picture of probably what is the structural problem. The organization might be fighting over money, but probably it's a question of communication. So you first have to identify what you want to correct. If you are sick, it is not all parts of your body that is sick. What a professional medical doctor does is to conduct different types of tests to ascertain which part of your body is having problem. At the end of the analysis, he says, Professor Albert, that your problem is not headache, probably the need for you to have more rest. Probably 2-3 days ago, what you were telling the people around you is, oh, I'm having migraine, I'm having whatever. That is not your problem until you come across a scientific analyst who will tell you this is the problem.
You've given me a good framework of how we're going to channel this conversation. And it's really interesting as we were going through them, resources being one of them, value system is another, psychological needs, and then communication with information exchange. And I'm thinking that in Nigeria right now, to me, it seems like every single one of those is.
All of them are in Nigeria.
Right.
And that is why some of us, when we speak on television, people think we are exaggerating the situation. But we see all these causes in a nation. You have all the problems. It's like going to a clinic and the medical doctor doing his test, and he realizes that all parts of your body is dead. Every part of your body is dead. So the question now is, how do you manage such a person? In Nigeria, we have all the causes of conflict, but our leaders speak in simplistic terms and say, oh, no, it's this crazy group. It goes beyond that. The entire country is sick.
Yeah, that's really putting it just bluntly as it needs to be. So thank you for really digging into that. I know you just scratched the surface from your perspective, but for me, you've really given me a lot in how to objectively look at what's going on in the nation. So Professor Albert, as you know, I'm based in Los Angeles, and in the past few days, or a little over a week, we have watched several phases of events coming out of Nigeria. First, we had at least from my perspective, it's about 3 or 4 phases of things that happened in a matter of 10 days. The first one in my mind was the unprecedented peaceful protest I've ever seen in recent times. Unprecedented. Yes. Marching, yes. No looting, peaceful, totally, right? Because I was comparing it to the Black Lives Matter here and everything that happened as soon as the protest started, the looting started, and the whole thing, the burning started. So that was the first thing I saw. And then secondly, I saw an unprecedented deadly reaction, purportedly understood to be initiated by the Nigerian army. And it's like, oh my gosh, we went from here to here, totally unprecedented on both sides. And then after that, I saw peaceful protests turned deadly, followed by looting, several buildings set ablaze in Lagos, and finally, news clip coming out that the videos and pictures we are seeing are fake news. Professor, you were in Nigeria in the past 2 weeks. Do you mind recalibrating us so we can know exactly what was real and what was fake? Because right now, I don't even know what's real anymore.
Well, thank you. The anti-SARS protest that we saw in the past few weeks, I think is the biggest that we have ever witnessed in the history of this country. It was peaceful until it was infiltrated by 2 categories of people, agents of the state and then street boys. But let me start by painting what I consider to be the problem. SARS is an anti-robbery squad established in 1992 as a result of police brutality against an army colonel. This colonel was attacked in Lagos, and it was a case of mistaken identity. And to prevent such problem happening in future, a special squad was established in the Nigerian police to deal specially with the issue of armed robbery. In my own professional understanding of SARS, it is not supposed to be a unit that functions like any other police unit. What is expected is different police stations will receive complaints, we deal with issues, we deal with problems, and those cases that have to do with robbery are then transferred to SARS. So SARS does not actually operate as we see. Cases are transferred to it, and difficult cases are referred to it for management. In the course of its operations, SARS started going to the streets, not actually looking for armed robbers, but looking for the so-called Yahoo boys. Our young ones in the society will be going to school, they are going to parties, they are going to whatever, and then somebody somewhere will just emerge from nowhere and say, look, I want to look at your phone. And we started witnessing different types of extortion, extrajudicial killing of Nigerians, raping of our young ones, all kinds of criminal activities. So a body that was set up to clean up the mess in the society became the manufacturing industry for those problems. Nigerians started protesting about it quietly until 2017, when a group of Nigerians started the End SARS Twitter campaign. Since 2017 to to this period, we've had the government telling us they will put end to the unhealthy activities of this police unit. It's like the government was more interested in making promises than keeping the promises, until we came to this last case that took place, I think, in September this year. A young man driving Lexus Jeep was killed in Ughelli in Delta State. He was not only killed by SARS, but this policeman drove away with his Jeep. And I think it was at that point that young people started saying, well, enough is enough. If the government is not ready to deal with this problem, we will come out and invite the international community to look into the kind of problems we are facing here. And that was what led to the anti-SARS campaign. And it was peaceful, peacefully organized. And a few of our students in Lagos, because as they were organizing this protest, some of us were doing our research. We wanted to know many things about the protesters, their conduct, so that if by any chance they achieve their goals, we would be able to come up with some academic explanations. And we realized that in the course of that protest, these young people came up with models of governance that is better than what Abuja is offering us. Accountability, they make money, they account for whatever you give them, they clean up the streets, they organize themselves properly, and everything was orderly until this October 20 incident. The governor of Lagos State said, we are going to impose a curfew on Lagos State. And the curfew will start 4 p.m. And by 4 p.m., the governor realized that the boys were still on the street, sitting quietly there. So he shifted the time to, I think, 9 or 10 o'clock. But before that period, some soldiers came and started shooting these innocent people. The military has denied it, that it was not responsible. The governor of Lagos State denied it, but later came up to say, okay, no, it happened, 1 person died, and then later 2 persons died. As of yesterday, the president said 65 people died. The military contradicted itself in several ways. One, a brigadier general, I don't want to mention his name, said to have led the operation. People started threatening him, saying what they would do to his children and so on. And he came out to say, look, I did not lead the operation, but I lived in the nearby barracks. And when I started hearing gunshots, I came out to meet the soldiers to prevent them from shooting me. I introduced myself to say, I am so person. Please, let's manage this situation very more carefully. And he said the person that was leading the operation was a Lieutenant Colonel Bello, not a ghost. So he mentioned the name of the colonel, a lieutenant colonel that led the operation. What I would have expected the Nigerian army to do is to go back to their books to find theoretical explanations for what happened. And we have 3 possible explanations. If the person that managed the operation carried out that operation on his own, it is interpreted as personal responsibility. He would take personal responsibility for coming out to kill innocent Nigerians. If he was commanded to come and do it, then he would say, well, I didn't do it. I was asked to do it by my commanders. But it cannot be a nameless commander. You name the person who gave you the order. But if the person who gave you the order said a higher authority asked him to do it, then we say, okay, probably this order was given to protect Nigeria. But for you to come out to say, nobody did it, then who did it? So this is the annoying part of it. There's the need for the Nigerian state to own up to what has happened and for us to conduct independent investigation of what really happened. We differentiate between the perpetrators of this crime and the victims of the crime. How do we punish the perpetrators? How do we compensate the victims? These are the logical issues that I expect Nigeria to be addressing.
So, Professor, I must tell you, I'm just dumbfounded by all these things that's going on. First of all, regarding the armies driving through the city to the location in Lekki, somebody must have given some instructions.
Yes.
So my point is that if the army can decide to act act on their own without receiving instruction from someone in authority. I mean, so we have the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Barata, right? That's the Chief of Army Staff. You have General Abayomi Gabriel Olonishakin,
yes,
the Chief of Defense Staff. You can also expect the Minister of Defense, Bashir Salihi Magashi, who was appointed just about a year ago, to know about this. And most importantly, the Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, who is the President, President Buhari. Somebody must be giving the final order. And I'm just assuming if the army can act on their own, then it sounds like the Nigerian government has a bigger problem that they can anticipate.
It's a big problem. If their explanation is taken, it means that a lieutenant colonel can actually organize a coup in Nigeria and get away with it. Because if a lieutenant colonel can assemble so many soldiers and drive through all the streets of Lagos to come to that place to carry out that operation, then I think we have problems. As of this morning, it was reported that curfew has been declared in 16 states. And in these 16 states, what the government is indirectly saying is that hoodlums have taken over those states. If we have 36 states and hoodlums are in control of 16, I wonder if our political leaders understand the implications of that in security studies or in security management. So hoodlums have taken over 16 states. The more they try to explain the problems, the more I think they are calling the attention of the international community to the governance crisis in Nigeria. And you see, we need to own up that we have problems. Nigeria needs assistance. But the problem is that we perpetually live in denial. All the four causes of conflicts are with us. All parts of the country are sick. If you go to the Northeast, Boko Haram is daily slaughtering people. Go to the Northwest, cattle rustlers and bandits are killing people every day. Go to the Middle Belt, the North Central, herdsmen and farmers are in permanent battles. Go to the South-South, come to the Southwest, kidnapping and hostage taking. There's no part of the country that is safe.
So, Professor Albert, will you be able to elaborate on who, in your experience in working with the military, ought to have issued the command for the army to carry out the Lekki mission? This does not mean the person issued the command, but it's important to know who has the authority to issue such a command.
Under the Nigerian Constitution, only the president has the right to order the deployment of troops. That is why he's not just known as the president of Nigeria, but president of Nigeria and commander-in-chief of the armed forces. So he is the only person with that type of power, but that type of power could also be delegated to the service chiefs. Even then, before any service chief responds to the kind of situation that we had in Lagos, he must have obtained permission from the president. But I want to also add that some overzealous security chiefs can actually do this, believing that the president will give them accolades for acting so favorably, because in Nigeria here, you have a lot of what we call eye service. You know, you want to do it so that the president will consider you to be the big boy. But we really have to underscore the point that the governor of Lagos State does not have the power to deploy any troop. So we have to narrow the argument down to the president of the country and the head of the army.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Professor. That is very important for us to know just how that landscape, how they operate in that landscape. So then the question remains, and it's not a real question, it's just rhetorical. It's just that if the president did not issue the command and somebody acted without the authority, that person must be brought to justice. Then secondly, Even
Yes.
if it was a
Yes.
delegated authority, right? The person that delegated the authority is still responsible. It's still under the responsibility of the president, the commander-in-chief. Is still responsible, regardless of who carried it out, whether it's a delegated authority or somebody was just overzealous. The president is responsible, and the president needs to take the necessary action, right, to just take care of this matter. I think that's what we're hearing, right?
Yes. Yes. And I think that is why the president refused to mention that incident in his speech. The army has also denied it because they know that if they accept responsibility for the deployment, it might generate considerable international punishment. Let me use the word punishment because it is an evidence of lawlessness, and is to show that Nigeria is drifting in the direction of a rogue state. And so while the president was addressing the nation, he refused to touch the issue of the Lekki killings. What I see the state trying to do is to use some isolated cases of misinformation in the social media to dismiss the entire scenario, to say it, in fact, that nothing took place, that it was just the creation of the social media. And then some Nigerians are saying, okay, if nothing happened, then none of these so-called hoodlums appeared anywhere. None of the buildings that were burnt ever happened. But we do know, and history has recorded it, that something happened. And one of it is that some innocent protesters were shot at.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. So in my mind, and I just want to reiterate this, regardless of who did what, the commander-in-chief is responsible to issue the authority. There is no excuse for, I don't know, I didn't know, I wasn't aware, it doesn't matter. That commander-in-chief is responsible. That is a fact. Okay, so thank you for helping us to understand that.
This is why some of us professionals were worried, because the more we deny our problems, the more problems we have. And here, I'll take you to a theory that is saying that when you have a problem as we're having in Nigeria, if you deny the problems, you have three additional problems. You will have actor proliferation. More people will be coming to join the problem. And we've seen it very clearly that those who started the anti-SARS protest were very honest people, non-violent people, but in the process of actor proliferation, criminals have joined them, hoodlums have joined them, military people have joined them. Now, the second one is you have issue proliferation. The issues will move from end SARS to end SWAT, and then some people now are saying end Nigeria. When you allow actor proliferation, you allow issue proliferation, you will get management complication. The problems become very difficult to manage. But the problem with us is those managing our problems are like primary school, this thing in terms of knowledge of conflict management. They tell you that a very complex problem is no problem. And that is why we are afraid that should our situation continue this way, the future is very bleak. I'm talking here as a professional. And we professionals, when we talk, we don't care who is listening to us. We just want to say it as it should be said. Our problem in Nigeria requires sincere acknowledgement of the issues and readiness to do what is right. But I don't think we have the political will.
Wow. It's a heavy load, just thinking about it, just hearing it. And I'm very pleased to hear your perspective, especially the fact that you are articulating what I have not heard at all, because I kept asking myself, what is it? Let me just take you through some quick analysis I just did a few days ago. So I checked in Worldometer. The current population of Nigeria was a little over 207 million, with the median age of 18.1.
Yes.
Median age tells us that half of the population of Nigeria is more than 18 years old, and the other half is less than 18 years old.
Yes.
This confirms that the Nigerian population is definitely youth heavy. And it will continue to increase because they will continue to procreate their youth, right? They will continue to give birth. Now that we've established that fact, and we also know that the youth, they're asking for something. They ask to end SARS. But I'm thinking, with everything you have said, okay, let's pretend we want to end SARS. That is simply not the ask here. That is not the issue. I think we need, so the youth are like those patients that went to the clinic to say, I have a headache, I have this. They think it's a headache, but the professional, the physician is looking at different things that's going on. It's not a headache, it's like total body failure, right? That's going on here.
There must be a problem.
Right? So the youth are saying, end SARS, I have a headache. But professionals like yourself, practitioners like yourself, you know that it's not end SARS. We have a bigger problem that we need to solve.
We have bigger problems.
And I think you have essentially identified all those components that we're going through, which is anything and everything you want to call it, whether it's NSAS, whether it's end police, whether it's government, all of them are part of the issue that we need to begin to solve. My question then is, if we don't look at youth, which represent the significant population base in Nigeria, if we don't begin to address the issues that relate to the youth, it's just a matter of time again. It's a ticking time bomb. Unless we're going to drive through again with the unknown army, with an unknown commander-in-chief to wipe off a large percentage of the youth. Unless we do that, it's a ticking time bomb.
Yes, it's a time bomb.
What do you think, Professor?
Well, because I think your analysis is right. Your analysis is right. Who are these people holding Nigeria to ransom? As you have rightly said, a tiny population of just less than 10% of people from the age of, many of them are from 70 to, these are very old people. And in fact, some of us think they are senile. Some of them are senile. Because when you interact with them, they do not even understand the society they are managing. As you have rightly said, the population of Nigeria is above 70%. Youth is a youth population. They are called the millennials. They were born into technological age. They are digital, but you are dealing with an analog leadership. To me, professionally, I see a disconnect between those leading us and the led. Because these young people, their values are totally different from the values of the so-called elders. Those ruling them wants to ride private jets, or the things they want to do are totally different from what the younger ones wants to do. You see some of them actually manufacturing drones. I've just returned from a trip. You see, these are very innovative young people. They are dealing with a society that is not ready for any development. Because when you see the way we are governing ourselves, you don't budget, you don't give good money to education, you paid yourself fat salaries, better paid than American president, and then you have children who cannot feed, who have no slippers when going to schools. Now, the future belongs to these young ones. I am currently doing an edited volume on Agenda 2030, the so-called SDG. Now, when you look at those planning 2030 for young Nigerians, they are very old people. All they are interested in is the budget of the project. Now, those who will not live up to 2030 are the ones determining how those who own 2030 will live their life. This is a digital population, the millennials. So when you look at the documents on some of the policies, you say to yourself that probably this future we're talking about is not there at all. Because those doing the planning do not understand the future they are planning for, because that future does not belong to them. And yet, they are preventing those who own the future to be part of the planning process. For example, a few days ago, the Nigerian army said they were going to start what they call cyber war. And the young people on the street we met some of them, they just laughed. They said, look, you want to fight us using the social media? You don't even know the social media. You don't know the social media. The modern communication, you don't know. Modern technology, you don't know. You don't have access to. We know there is a disconnect. The only way by which we could get out of that problem is when leaders acknowledge the fact that what they know is not sufficient for driving this society in the right direction. A population that is over 200 million, being led by people whose knowledge is very, very narrow. Those of us who teach in the classrooms, we know that some of these young ones, I don't want to say more intelligent than us, but they know how to use technology to do many more things than us. And therefore, what we do now is we have opened up our systems. We are more flexible. We allow students to use their phones. We allow students to do many things in the classrooms because it helps knowledge production. Mm-hmm. But our leaders are still living up there, that they don't need the young ones, they don't need to care about them. All they want to do is to say, Mr. A and B will be the president of Nigeria in 2023. They're already fighting over 2023. It's a very, very worrisome development.
Absolutely. And so I think we're concluding that SARS is just a symptom of it's
just a symptom of
a bigger and
a more serious problem.
Exactly. I mean, I'm thinking of, we have the high youth unemployment, we have population will continue to increase, yes, whether we like it or not, and it continues to increase. If the status quo remains, right, then poverty, yes, will also increase, yes, right? I mean, that's a given. We have a government structure, centralized government, we're talking regional government, we're talking breakup. Yes. This is not even addressing the other internal issues associated with a developing country. So to tackle all these issues in one shot is obviously unrealistic. What should the priority be, Professor Albert? What should we be focusing on with this myriad of problems that we have identified from head to toe? What is the focus? Is it the heart? Is it the lungs? What is that piece? What is the heart of this problem that we need to focus on?
Our kind of problem requires that we sit down with these young people to have a better understanding of their mindset. Agenda 2063 of African Union is tagged the Africa we want. We need to have a meeting leading to the Nigeria that we want. And this Nigeria that we want is not going to be framed by the politicians throwing their weight all over the place, but it should be framed by the young ones who own the future. By the time we give them that opportunity to tell us the Nigeria they want, all these different elements you are talking about will come out. Now, let me give you an example to illustrate what I'm trying to say. These young ones don't vote. I don't know if you are aware of it. They don't participate in our elections. During elections, you see them playing football, and then a few of them that have been recruited as thugs, you see them being killed during elections. Because one, they don't have the resources to participate in any election. Nobody will feel them as candidates. So it's like they have been abandoned and rejected. And therefore, during elections, when movements are restricted, they use the main road to play football. It's a very common sight in Nigeria. And when you ask them, why are you not going to vote? They say, vote for who? Because one, they do not believe that the people you are voting for are there to serve anybody other than themselves. But start a television view center where they will see Manchesters. You see the place packed full with people, with young people. You see them taking pepper soup, you see them taking beer. And when the game is ended, you see them 2 hours doing the analysis. They know all the good football teams in the world. They know the best wrestlers in the world. That is where they give their attention to. Anything that would just take their mind off all these rascalities we see on the street. Or when you have Big Brother Niger and they are voting, you see millions of Nigerian youth voting, trying to influence who will win the whatever. That's where that's where they commit their energies to those things. Because our leaders have not established themselves as a group that could be trusted. Not even by me, a university professor. Nigerians no longer trust their leaders. But if we do not want this country to be worse than it is, we need to negotiate with our young ones. The future belongs to them. And if they choose to, they can paralyze the Nigerian state using social media. So lovers of this country, to me, need to invest in dialogue with our young ones. It's a joint problem-solving strategy. They will say what they want, and you will also say what you want. And the two of you will discuss it, debate it, and then you frame the future they want. Now, if they could see the future they want, I am very sure that tension will go down. And if you involve them in the implementation of the agenda, we are most likely to become one of the best countries in the world, because our young ones are not as lazy as the president once said. They are very, very productive, very hardworking, but they are unfortunate to be in a country that does not care for the young ones.
Yes, Professor Albert, I was just thinking, as you started to dig into that, I was thinking that we have multiple stakeholders here, right? We have a lot of stakeholders here. We have the youth and their families. We have the looters, right? The hoodlums. We have the community leaders, and we have the government, and even Nigerians in diaspora like myself. We're all stakeholders. What I would like you to do for us in a succinct way is to take us through the next steps by stakeholder. So let's start with the youth and their families. What is the message you have for the youth and their families in terms of next step?
You see, under this condition, we have to clearly differentiate between the perpetrators of the problems we are witnessing and the victims. To me, first and foremost, these young people are victims of bad governance. They were driven to what they did by bad governance. And when you look at the trajectories, when you look at how it all started and how we came to where we are, they came out to stage peaceful protest. They were very peaceful, very orderly, until we started having truckload of hoodlums being dropped and planted in their midst. I think we have to start by actually interrogating how they were infiltrated by criminal elements who actually changed the face of the protest. I don't want to blame it on the state, but some people did, some people came up with talks, planted these talks in their midst, and the talks escalated the problem, and then street boys took advantage of the situation to start looting, because these are street boys, abandoned by the political system, by the social system in the country. If you are asking me to say, what should these young ones do? To me, I think they are already on the floor. We need to reflect more on what should be done for them. What should they do? They are already there. They have no capacity, they have no economic capacity. Their social esteem is very low. Many of them have been brutally wounded and killed. And they're on the offensive. They are marginalized in the society. So what should they do? To me, it's not important as what should be done for them. Because if you say, what should they do? Probably we ask them to start organizing rather than agonizing. But the question is, to organize for what? Is it to organize politically? Is it to organize economically? So these are impossible tasks that we are trying to set before them. At the beginning of this engagement, I told you that since March, Students have been locked out of universities. Conflict between ASU and federal government. The state has more responsibility towards dealing with this problem than actually disturbing these young ones that are victims of a very badly organized society. So, for example, if you're asking me, what should students do? I will ask them to return to the streets to protest against the closure of their schools. And that would rather, escalate the problem. So I therefore want us to focus on what the state should do for them.
So, Professor, let's move on then and talk about what should the state, the government, the leaders, what should they be doing for them right now?
I think the starting point of that type of discussion is for the government to know that the youth population of this country is more than 70%. The attitude of the government now is to abandon this young population. And the interpretation of it is that you are throwing about 70% of your population away just to minister to the interest of a greedy population that is no more than 10%. Those ruling us. The minimum wage in Nigeria is 30,000 naira. A parliamentarian works on with about 30-something million a month. University professors earn about 500,000. Compare 500,000 to those that are earning about 30-something million a month. So it's an unjust society. So the first thing that one would expect for fixing this problem is for the structure of the society to be adjusted in a way that will not exclude the large population of Nigerians. For now, those holding Nigeria to ransom are not more than 10% of the population. They need to let go of what they are holding and spread the wealth around. And in the process of spreading the wealth around, this young population that is now protesting will benefit from the resources that the country is having. For example, if you improve, I am a university professor, I earn about 500,000 naira. If you improve my condition, the conditions of my children will be improved, and my capacity to also help the young ones in my society, in my family, will also be enhanced. But so long as you are paying me a wage that cannot even take me for a week, it's difficult for me to effectively manage the young people around me. So the first thing is for us to reduce the cost of governance in Nigeria. If you reduce the cost of governance in Nigeria, resources will trickle down to some of these young ones that are on the streets. My second recommendation is for us to give education better attention. At the end of this engagement, take a careful look at the 2021 budget, the budget that the National Assembly is considering now, or what is allocated to education. So tiny. What is allocated to health is very tiny, but what is allocated to those who are in government is so huge. You cannot develop any society without education. You cannot produce a healthy population without investment on health. So those who are making Nigeria impossible should release the country and make the country to work. I sincerely believe that if we make the country to work, then our capacity to boost the society, to boost the economy of Nigeria and to strengthen the social system, I think would be bettered. The young ones that are protesting have placed a number of demands before the government. I want to see a sincere implementation of what the government has promised to do. They initially came up with 5-point demand: the need to end SARS, the need to reform the police, and so on. We want to see this, but the practice in the past is the government will promise, but once the noise making goes down, you see the government actually do something that further escalates the problem. So I don't think this should be our approach to managing the problems that we have around us. The End SARS saga has shown clearly that the young ones in this society are bitterly opposed to those governing Nigeria. And if those governing the country think that business should be or could be as usual, I think they're making a very silly mistake, because now the battle line seems to have been drawn. Let's not deceive ourselves. The young ones know their enemies now, and those in government who want to remain there forever see these young ones as their enemies. And the only way to de-escalate the situation is for government to begin to come up with pro-people policies, pro-people political agenda, pro-people political behavior But if what we saw in the past is continued after this NSAS engagement, I don't know where Nigeria will be in the next 1 year. There is bitterness everywhere on the street. There is bitterness everywhere. They are very bitter.
And well supported too. I mean, I think the mass, the world supports them clearly. Professor, can you help me to understand what exactly were those demands from the youth? I think you said something about that there was a 5-point demand. There was end SARS. There was the reform the police system. What else is out there?
They want the conflict between ASU and federal government to be ended. They are asking that the service chiefs should be relieved of their appointments because Nigerians, northern Nigerians, the parliament, different Nigerian groups have been asking for the president to change the service chiefs as a strategy for improving the security of the country, but he's been keeping them for 5 years. You know, we've never had a situation where service chiefs serve for so long. So it's one of the demands of these young people. And they're asking for jobs.
Clearly makes sense to me. So I understand it now. End SARS, reform the police system, end the conflict between ASU and the federal government, relieve the service chiefs, and then provision of jobs, right?
Yeah.
So, but a couple of those requests actually can be executed almost immediately, right? Some may require a lot of planning and negotiation, but end SARS.
SARS, as I said, the body was disbanded, and the president said, well, we will do it. But we know that the government might not do some of these things that are promised.
Do you mind walking us through what Nigerians in diaspora should be doing, like myself and a lot out there that want to be part of the solution? They want to be involved in whatever it is that needs to happen. What should we be doing?
Most of the time, the government blackmails us by saying, if you don't do it, we'll go to America to bring people to do it. The government will rather boast about the capacity of those of you in the diaspora than actually giving you any space to make a contribution here. If you leave your job in the US and you come to Nigeria, you are coming into abject poverty because you'll be treated like one of us. Therefore, you are only respected for your remittances. And I wonder if you are truly respected for your remittances, because you hardly find a situation where the president is actually thanking those of you in the diaspora for what you are contributing to the economy of Nigeria. It is only those of us who teach economics in the classroom, who teach political economy, that would acknowledge your contributions in our publications. The question is, what is it that those of you in the diaspora could do? I have seen a number of you coming here to say, okay, we want to support this civil society organization that will provide health facilities. But we have realized you do it in infinitum. You are doing it, nobody is thanking you for it, and you keep doing it because the state will not complement whatever efforts that you are making. So it's like you are just bringing salt and you are dumping it into an ocean. I mean, I saw a number of people, of your type coming to Nigeria to do that type of a project. But what we have realized is that whatever you come to do stops some of our officials from doing what they have been paid to do. The other option is for you to say, okay, you want to come in to advise these young ones on violent social interaction. But you see, some of the interventions, I see them being done all over the place. Some of the interventions do not take into consideration the social environment of the people you are working with. The problems you are managing is created by the society. It's not created by these young ones. And the only way to reduce the problem is to work with the state that is creating the problem. The state should stop creating the problem. So long as the state is manufacturing the problems, and your own responsibility is to be contributing to removing the mess we create for ourselves, you're not going to make any impact. I'm saying this as a conflict management monitor and evaluator. But if the state is providing some support and you are complementing what the state is doing, then we begin to see some positive outcomes from your efforts. Therefore, to me, I think the only role you have to play, well, probably the most important role that you have to play is to form yourselves into a lobby group that will force the Nigerian state to become responsible. A lobby group that will continue to talk about the bad governance here, that will continue to motivate your governments to take some hard measures against bad governance in Nigeria. Recently, US and UK announced travel ban against some election riggers in Nigeria. It's working. If they have a problem with their fingers, they want to go to New York to treat it. If they have problems with their ears, they want to go to London for medical, whatever. So stop them from coming. Let them survive by the poor medical systems they created for the people. That is the kind of thing we want. It is not money. Stop throwing money at us. Throwing money at us will not work, because the young boys you put together for your conflict management programs, for your social development programs, no, they know that what you are doing will not translate into anything. But they are assured that when you are running their programs, when you are running your programs, there will be tea break, there will be lunch, and probably there will be small transport money you want to give to them. To them, it's an economic activity. You do that with them for 1 week, you do that with them for 1 month, and then they begin to look for another person that will assure them of tea break, that will assure them of lunch. So some of these programs don't translate into any serious, they don't produce any serious outcomes.
Yeah, and it's not sustainable. It's not dealing. It's not dealing at the root cause. It's not looking at the root cause. And I think you've clearly stated it that it really starts with the government, forcing the government to do the right thing for the people. And if all finger is pointing to that and all our energy is channeled to that, I think we might be able to gain traction. And I'm really glad to hear what you said, because I mean, even for me, myself, I'm just wondering, what can I do? I mean, you're doing different things in your space, whether you're sponsoring kids to go to college, to go to university, to do this and that. It's almost like you're helping the government to continue whatever mess they're doing. It's an environment that's making them to continue to do those things, right? So I get the point. Now, let's talk about another stakeholder that is so dear to my heart. These are, when you really think about it, I'm talking about the African Americans, the Black Americans. And for me personally, one of the things that I'm doing here through Your Black Matters is really to encourage Black Americans to visit their motherland. Nigeria being one of the motherlands. I mean, it's only a handful, right, where slavery came from. And you can imagine how distressful this situation will be to them, how embarrassing it is for me, seeing that what may potentially be a country that they are eyeing to visit or to relocate to consider as their new home is in this shambles. It's in a mess. It's almost like, wait, we're not talking about, okay, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Let's hope it works. I'm recording now. So let's just hope it works. So are you hearing me clearly?
Hello?
Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful. So what I was asking is about the African Americans here that are looking at potentially visiting Nigeria, either to relocate there or to just consider exploring Nigeria or even Africa as a second home. Now, what just happened in Nigeria is a major setback. Would you mind speaking to them as well? I don't think this is a stop, but do you mind speaking to them?
When I started my career in the 90s, on annual basis, we received a large delegation of African Americans trying to see the Nigerian environment, trying to explore the possibility of settling down. And they identified a number of places, most especially in Yoruba land, where they could settle. As you rightly said, this recent crisis the end SARS crisis is a minus for us as a nation. But what I say to colleagues, when I travel to the US and this type of interest is shown, what I tell them is that most of the traditional rulers here are interested in receiving such people. We have a commission, a national commission for Diaspora that is also supporting such efforts. So they should not be discouraged. Those who want to come should indicate their interest, and University of Ibadan will actually facilitate it. We have a unit that receives American students annually, though these American students only come to learn Yoruba language. But that institute, I think, can also help to facilitate whatever these Nigerians, Africans in the diaspora, whatever they want to do here. Those of them who want to settle down would be assisted by the Nigerian states to do that.
Wow, thank you so much, Professor. That is so comforting, is so reassuring. And as you've said, Nigerians in diaspora, our role is to... Hey, Prof, can you hear me? Wow. Okay. Well, I just want to thank you so much for all the suggestions you've given and the various recommendations. Personally, when it comes to African Americans, what you said is very encouraging. And there are a lot of stakeholders here. It's beyond the 10% that are ruling. I mean, there are a lot of people outside that are very interested in the success of Nigeria. So I just want to thank you so much for your time, for contributing to this conversation. It means so much. And I want to ask that if we need to come back, would you be willing to come back again?
Anytime, I'm at your service.
Wow, that was a mission trying to complete that. Thank you so much, Professor Albert, for your time and just your commitment to what we're trying to do. While it's really very difficult to ascertain the real from fake news, one thing is certain: mothers have lost their children, their husband, their grandchildren, and many more. I cannot imagine the pain you are going through, because I'm a woman first, then a mother, a wife, and a grandmother. I can only pray that you will receive comfort and solace from above. When it comes to the issue of government, I am a total novice. I do know one thing though: government are people. They are husbands, wives, sons, and daughters. I only ask you to be human first as you work through the issues in Nigeria. I pray for wisdom and ask for compassion from above as you begin the process of healing and restoration. I understand there are still lootings and burnings of properties. I'm of the opinion that there is a fundamental root cause of why you are doing this. For sure, it's not because you want to be labeled a looter, a hoodlum, or a criminal. I know your preference is to be a law-abiding member of the society. That I know. But you can't become a law-abiding member of the society by looting. That doesn't go together. The message is clear that something is missing and you are a critical consideration to stabilize Nigeria. So I ask that you please stop. This can be fixed and hopes can be restored. So please stop. You're part of the total plan to make sure Nigeria is restored. And please allow the leaders to work out a plan to solve the issues. In fact, I would say allow the youth to help solve the problem. Okay, they can help us all. And Nigerian youth, what can I say? You are absolutely phenomenal. What we did not do, you just did it. And you must be applauded and recognized. You are resilient. You set the world record in many angles, and you are my heroes and sheroes. If not because Black people rarely receive credit or recognition for anything, you should be in the book of records when it comes to Organization, accountability, administration, execution, zeal, focus, and unity. You know that there is nothing that can be withheld from you when you have singleness of mind and purpose. You work across tribal groups, religious and cultural differences. Seriously, don't let anyone say you are anything less than that. No one can ever say you are irrelevant. In fact, let me tell you something. Depending on how this ends, great institutions of the world may begin to study how you were able to execute what you just did. And you can become a great case study in business and even in military. I'm hearing that you might be about 70% of Nigerian population. Let me do the math quickly. So 70% of 207 million. Wow, 145 million. Do you know something? You are the single largest population of Blacks all over the world. Every country and any business need to court you. You are a powerful stakeholder in this conversation and even the success of the world. Now, I understand, and you all heard from Professor Albert, that the demand is for 5 things. First one is end SARS, reform the police system, relieve some service chiefs, create jobs, and end the conflict between ASU and the federal government. As I look at those things, some of them can be executed very quickly. End SARS, for example. Professor said they weren't even supposed to be on the street in the first place. So at the minimum, get them back to the back office, then figure out how to end them. So that can be done almost immediately. Relieving of service chiefs, I think that can also be done immediately. I mean, they're not adding value. That's what I think I'm hearing. Ending the conflict between ASU and the federal government is a must. Students need to return. So this is a priority. And in my mind, it's non-negotiable. When it comes to reforming the police system and creating jobs, in order to have a sustainable solution, it will require careful planning and execution. And you must be part of that. Nobody needs to plan that for you. You need to be part of that planning. So I want you to do this for me. From tomorrow, do not go out to protest. In fact, let's make it 14-day moratorium or suspension from protesting. First, this will allow the powers that be to come up with a game plan. Your expectation within the 14 days will be, number 1, the end to SARS. Number 2, relieve the service chiefs. Number 3, an end to the conflict between ASU and the Fed. So you give them 14 days to do those things. I think that's doable. It's realistic. Secondly, during those 14 days, you have much work to do. But this is now what we call the strategic work. So you've executed your tactical work. Now let's put a strategic plan or strategic framework around what you need to do. There are 2 tasks that is not going to be a quick fix from the government, and you shouldn't even expect the government to put this together for you. That is the police reform and creation of jobs. In fact, do you really want the government to come up with a plan to reform the police and create jobs for you? If they know how to do it, it would have been done. So this is what you're going to do. The first week, you're going to work on the police reform. You will come up with a high-level executable plan. You will use a SMART approach. That is, it must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So it needs to be SMART. So you do the police reform in the first week. The second week, you're going to do the same on creation of jobs. I will make myself available to you. You can get to know me on yourblackmatters.com. That's my website. Check it out. Send me an email and let me know your thoughts. And then if you need help by Wednesday of the week, send me an email that we need to meet on Saturday. I will set up a webinar so no one can see who's calling in. I can help you to review what you've developed. We can have 2 webinars, the first one on Saturday, November 7th, and the second one the following Saturday. But you need to let me know by midweek so I can set it up and send you the invite link, the Zoom invite link. By the end of your 2 weeks, you will expect to have the following: end SARS, relief of the service chiefs, end of the ASU conflict with the Fed, the specific plan to implement the police reform, and an executable plan on how to create jobs for the youth. You have deliverables and expectations within the next 14 days. So you have much work to do. I love you with all my heart. I have no doubt you will build the Nigeria that we want, the Nigeria that is relevant, the Nigeria that will sustain her people, the Nigeria that is worthy of emulation by the whole world. You are not the future of Nigeria. You are Nigerians. You are the current Nigeria. I'll look out for your email. Check me out on your Black Matters. My email address is francesca@yourblackmatters.com. Francesca, FRANCESCA @yourblackmatters.com. May the Lord bless the Nigerian youth, our pride and our joy. And may God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Bye-bye.